3 o'clock. We're live. Hello folks, we're ready to wind up here, and we'll start in a couple minutes here. Have patience, we're short-handed today.
Jay.
Would you shut that door, please? Thank you. Are we on the air, Gina?
We are. I'm trying to find it.
Find it. Yeah. Told you it's getting early.
No, it doesn't have nothing to do with that.
So we are start. Oh, let's start.
We are.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, see how professional we are, folks.
Good afternoon. Hope everybody's having a good day today. Today is our 10th show. Our last show we had over 15,000 views, which is awesome. Just want to remind everybody tomorrow is our spring open house. We'll be open at 9 o'clock and close at 3.
Directions?
Now, if you need the address, make sure you look in the new catalog or look on our website or our Facebook. Don't go by the old catalog because it has our old address, or you can always call us for the address. 724-843-6889. So today's show we're going to be talking about nest boxes, different things you can use with the nest box, like the tray, the divider, and the nest fronts.
And who are you?
Oh, I'm Gina and this is Jerry, if you don't know us by now. Also, we're going to be showing 2 of the different white release baskets for the weddings and funerals.
Okay?
Okay.
We're ready to go.
We're ready.
Number one, I know we have a question already, but if you have a question and you're watching this show, what's the terminology? Just Facebook the question? How do you do that?
Just ask it right on the live show.
And when it comes up, we'll answer the question on the air. I wanted to talk about, before we really get into questions and so forth, we as pigeon people are very, very fortunate in having some really top quality magazines that are available to us. So I thought I'd talk about them just for a moment. This is Purebred magazine. It's a quarterly. It comes out, oh, there goes my notes. It comes out every other month, of course. And it's an all-breed pigeon magazine. As you can see, it's full color, has lots of articles. There's a for sale section in the back. If you're looking for a particular breed, it's in the back under the classified. I don't know what I'd do without it, because it's just full of pictures in color, talks about shows. It has a schedule of shows. It's called Purebred magazine. Just put it, type it in on the internet, Purebred. Or if you really need more information, give me a call, or give Foys a call, and we'll give you the information how to contact them. The other magazine is the National Pigeon Association quarterly magazine. Once again, it's a quarterly magazine, full color, put out by the National Pigeon Association. And if you're not a member of the National Pigeon Association and you have fancy birds, I really strongly suggest you join the NPA. It's so inexpensive. It's $20 a year. And for that $20, you get the color of the magazine free. So it's almost like you're subscribing to a magazine, a great one, and then you're also a member of the NPA, National Pigeon Association. If you're a racing homer enthusiast, there's a magazine called Racing Pigeon Digest. It's a bi-weekly, comes out every other week, just full of information, hints on how to become a better racing pigeon person. I get all 3 and look forward to them, to getting them. And whenever they do come in, they're mailed here at Foys. And if I don't get it real quick and take it home, Gina steals it because she wants to read it before I do, because she knows once I take it home, she's not going to see it again. So those are 3 good magazines: the Racing Pigeon Digest, Purebred magazine, and the National Pigeon Association. I got a note. In fact, don't mind me and my professionalism. I just dropped it on the floor. Oh, heck, I can remember. His name was Dell. He called me a couple of days ago, and he's 77 years old. He's had pigeons for 70 years, and he was just getting in touch with me and telling me that he had bought pigeons from Foys Pigeon Supplies. It's coming. There it is. Okay. He was telling me that when he was just 7 years old, he had common street pigeons. And like he said during the interview, or during the phone call, he started out like a lot of people, just catching barn pigeons and enjoying the heck out of them. And one day he noticed a pigeon loft, and he walked up to it to look at the pigeons, and they were Modena pigeons. And he talked to the owner, and he said, "I sure would like to have some of them like that." He said, "I'll tell you what, son." He says, "You wash my house, because I'm going to paint it. So if you wash my house, I'll give you a pair of Modenas." He washed the house and pretty much had pigeons all his life since then, total of 7 years. So he also, reason I wanted to talk about it, I've talked to you folks before, there's a group of trustees that drive a fundraising effort to support this great pigeon hobby. It's called the National Pigeons Association Legacy Fund Trust. The reason I bring it up now is this gentleman is named Dell. Dell says, "Oh, by the way, I'm sending you a check for $100. He says, "It's for the Legacy Fund Trust." He says, "I just thought it's about time I got my name on the wall." And I thought that was a great comment. What he meant is that twice a year in the National Pigeon Association Quarterly Magazine, they list everybody that's contributed over the last, let's see, it's been in effect, I think, 12 years now, 12 or 13 years. And so he wanted his name to be published with everybody else's, and at $100 he became what's called a gold band member, and for that you get to be listed in the NPA Quarterly Magazine forever. So you'll never ever be forgotten. Your name will be there, the date that you gave, the where you're from, what state, and the breed that you have. So if you're interested in helping, and the way it works is all the money that's contributed from pigeon fanciers around the world, I've got them from Canada and out of the United States and other places, all you need to do is make a contribution and send it to me. My address is you can send it to Foys. That would be easier rather than giving you a new address. The checks are made out to NPA LFT, Legacy Fund Trust, and your name will be forever listed. We never ever spend your money. That's what I want. That's the point I wanted to make. All the money that we receive is invested in conservative funds. So whenever we have earned income, and every year we have earned income from the investments that we made, because your money is always invested, then that earned income is made available, and what we do is support pigeon-related projects. And you don't have to be a member of the NPA to make that contribution. Gina, have a question? Do I want to mention what?
About Kim.
Kim. Oh, yeah, I mentioned at the beginning of the show that we're a little short-handed. Today, my wife Vicki is at the hospital visiting our daughter Kim. Kim has been ill, very serious illness. She's in the hospital right now, although the hospital visit is a temporary thing. She was dehydrated, so they're hydrating her, and some other things that have to be done. I thought most of you who have called and ordered products from Foys, or just called with questions from Foys or to Foys, you may want to send her a card. You can send it care of Foys Pigeon Supplies. You all have the address. Be great if we could have 1,000 cards or 100 cards for her. She'd be overwhelmed. She's much loved by all of our customers, and if you know and have met Kim, I'm sure that you've enjoyed meeting her, and wouldn't it be great if you sent her a card, because she'll be out for a good period of time, so something to cheer her up would be great. Did I say that okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. we have a question? By the way, she didn't want me to mention it, and I did. I don't always listen.
Jacob asks, what vaccines are absolutely necessary?
None. Absolutely is a strong word. It means if you don't have them, something terrible is going to happen. Not the case. There are 2 pigeon vaccines made available in the United States and made in the United States. One is for Paratyphoid, which is a bacterial infection, and one is PMV, which is for the paramoxyvirus. And neither vaccines are treatments. What they are is preventative. And it's one of those things, if you do it, you have to continue to do it. But it makes a lot of sense to do it. So absolutely necessary, no. Makes common sense, smart. Shame on you if you don't do it. The vaccines are preventative. So if you've already got the virus, or you've already got the bacterial infection called paratyphoid, it's not going to treat them. You can't prevent what you've already got. So if you're really interested in long-term good health, sure, you absolutely should consider vaccinating with both. And now that both vaccines are made in the United States by the same people, Dr. K and Dr. Miller, that's why the vaccine for paratyphoid is called K&M. You can do them together now. It used to be that one was oil-based and one was water-based, so you couldn't do them together. Oil and water didn't mix. Now both vaccines are water-based, so you can actually do them, sell all your syringes out, or however you do it, or have 2 injection guns and do them both at the same time. So they are available from Foys or any other pigeon suppliers pretty much in the United States.
Just to mention, the vaccines are both $139. Some people think that's cost too much, but if you think of it as, they are 100 dose, so if you think of it as $1.39 per pigeon, then it's not so much. And I also wanted to mention to Ricky, we were supposed to show how to vaccinate today. Somebody forgot to bring the pigeon. So we'll put that on the agenda again for the next show.
It'll be done again.
I would say I'd remind him, but my memory's as bad as his.
All right, if you have questions, once again, you send them to us via Facebook. And do we have more?
Yeah.
And we'll be glad to answer them. Go ahead,
Gina. Also, for the vaccines, the PMV is the initial shot, and then a booster within 3 weeks, and then you vaccinate annually. The paratyphoid is the initial shot, a booster, and then that one is every 6 months.
What I wanted to do, and if you have a mind, you might want to get a piece of paper sort of woven through this entire show. I've got a whole list of little tips that you might be able to use around the loft. In fact, I'm working on a new book, and it'll be on pigeon health, but it'll also have a section called Tips and Tricks, and these are some of the things that are going to be in that book. And I think I'm about a year away. The last book I wrote took me 5 years. I think we can get this one done in probably 2 years, hopefully. For instance, we just talked about PMV. Here's a tip from the tip sheets that I have that'll be in the next book. PMV may cause a watery diarrhea that makes the floor like it was hosed down. It'll make it really wet. It's clear, watery droppings. You may see a watery puddle under the perches. Sometimes it sticks to the back of their butt on the feathers. So if you've got PMV, you're going to have sudden death, and you're also going to have really watery droppings. Another question?
Yes.
Okay.
Tom asks, how effective would you consider the 3-in-1 medication that covers worms, cocci, and canker?
And what was the question? Would I consider it?
How effective would you consider 3-in-1?
I am not a believer, and if you've watched this show, I think this is our 10th time, and I've probably said it 10 times. I'm not a believer in combination medications. I guess it makes common sense, or makes sense, to use it before breeding season, but you have to think of it this way. If your birds don't have canker, if they don't have coccidiosis, and if they don't have worms, what did you do it for? If the birds are perfectly healthy, and if you've had pigeons for a good while, you know when they're not well. So why treat them when they're perfectly healthy? That being said, if I had to choose between 3-in-1 and 4-in-1, I've said this many times, I would use 3-in-1. Pigeons develop resistance to antibiotics, and there is an antibiotic in 4-in-1. In 3-in-1, it treats canker, coccidiosis, and worms. Those aren't diseases in the true sense of the word. What they are protozoa, or small bugs that generally live in the intestines, or in worms are in the intestines. Canker a lot of times can be anywhere, the most common place being in the mouth. So if you want to use a preventative before breeding season, I'd recommend 3-in-1. But if you have canker, use a ronidazole or a canker product. If you have worms, you want to use oxyfenbendazole or a common wormer. Or coccidiosis, there's a lot of drugs for coccidiosis also. So you're better to send the droppings in, somebody like Foys, or have a veterinarian do it. And he'll tell you by looking at the droppings whether you've got worms or coccidiosis, and then sometimes canker. So that's the best way to go. Send droppings in, have them analyzed, and you'll know if your birds have an issue, and then use the proper medicine, not the shotgun approach. Was that a speech?
It was.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, okay. One of the customers emailed, talked to you, didn't he? He called in, or I think he called in, and said he really enjoyed our show. He said, especially when Gina gave me those dirty looks, which she has a tendency to do once in a while. Go ahead, another question.
Jerry asked, where's the best place to vaccinate young birds?
Back of the neck. In fact, I was going to do it today, and I'm sorry to say I didn't. But what you do is you face the bird. I put the bird between my legs. I'm sitting in a chair, usually on a 5-gallon bucket. I sit the bird between my legs and hold it tight so that its feathers can't move around. It's facing away from me. Like a scissor effect, I will bend the bird's head forward, away from me, and then what you should do is wet that area behind the neck, and if it's held this way, the needle goes straight down towards the floor, just underneath the skin. That's the best place. Some people do it in the webbing between the leg and the body. I've talked to veterinarians about that, and they said the best place is behind the neck. And we'll do a demonstration on how to do that if I don't forget the pigeons. Because my pigeons are about 15 or 20 minutes away at my home, not here at the store. I hope if you're coming tomorrow, we're having that open house, spring open house, and we have a group I know coming from Baltimore. But make the trip. We open around 9 and we're here until 3 Eastern time. We're very, very easy to find. Would mention there's a bit of a road problem down the road from us. We're on Route 51, but if you were going south on 51, you would come to our store, and it's fine, it's no problem at all. But once you passed our store, less than a mile down, the road is closed. So if there's any questions at all, give us a call and we'll direct you from wherever you're coming from. Did want to mention I am going to be here tomorrow too, so love to talk to you. And if you have a question, you can bring them with you.
And sign autographs.
Pardon?
And sign autographs.
Yeah, oh yes, sign autographs. Okay.
We have a question from Harry from Toronto.
I think, don't I know Harry?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Harry.
His friend has 2 pigeons. Hold on. 2 of his females died. They have 2-week-old babies. 1 female died. She had eggs, and some of the birds are not coming down to eat. What's the cause of this?
Not enough information. Harry, I'm going to give you my home phone number. You write it down, or call the show right after this show. Call Foys, and I'll be glad to discuss it with you, because you're not giving me enough symptoms. There's no question that the birds are ill, but whenever anybody calls me and they tell me similar things that you're telling me, they're symptoms. If a bird is all fluffed up and roughed up and sort of closing his eyes. That's a symptom. If the bird won't come down to eat or sits in a corner, that's a symptom. So I need to ask you some questions. Number one, are they young or are they old? Number two, what color are the droppings? Number three, what have you tried, if anything? If you haven't tried anything, what do you have available? So that by asking you those kind of questions, it'll lead me more in the direction to being able to diagnose what the problem might be. So if you want to call me, 724-843-6889 at the store. I'll be here for a little bit after the show. I'll be glad to discuss it with you. Or if you want to wait, you can call my home, 724-359-5355. And I'll give you some time. We'll try to figure out what the problem might be. I would like to tell you, I'm starting to get a lot of calls, and I appreciate that. But I'm getting calls 6 o'clock Saturday night, 8 o'clock Sunday night, and I've got to the point where I do not answer the phone after 5 o'clock Eastern time, unless you've told me, hey, I'm going to call you at 6 o'clock. If I'm home, I'll answer. But generally, if that phone rings, it's my landline, and it's a Saturday or a Sunday, I don't answer. I just, I live, breathe, and pigeons, and it's all I do is answer questions and stuff. I love doing it, and I love the research that's required to do it, but common courtesy say, don't call me before 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm a late sleeper. And don't call me till after 5 o'clock because I won't answer the phone. Simple as that. I wanted to mention another tip as we go through. Antibiotics. Don't use antibiotics, and we've talked about vaccinating, 5 days before you vaccinate. So it's a good little thing. You don't medicate your birds and then the next day vaccinate. So you've got to give them a break. So what you should do is about 5 days before you're going to vaccinate, whether it's PMV or paratyphoid, you may want to give them vitamins and probiotics for those 5 days, and then you're going to vaccinate. I've mentioned it before. I say vitamins and probiotics. The best product, in my opinion, that you can use is something called Ultra Pro. My birds get it usually 6 to 7 days a week, year-round, except when I'm medicating or wanting to add something else to the water. So if you're going to vaccinate, 5 days before, vitamins and probiotics. Do we have a question, young lady?
We have a couple comments first.
Oh, is it good? Good comments or bad comments?
Of course. When you were talking about you don't take calls on the weekends or after 5, Grandma said unless it's him.
Hi, Grandma. And that's true, but Grandma is a personal friend, and I'm in the process, it sounds weird, but I'm in the process of trying to train Grandmas. He's 30 years younger than me, really, really interested in learning about pigeon health and what to do about it. He does a lot of consulting work for people in Europe, friends who have pigeons, and invariably, if he runs up against something he can't answer, he'll call me and we'll discuss it. Hopefully, when something happens to me, not that the girls aren't well prepared, they can answer more health questions than 90% of Americans or pigeon breeders in America, but Grandma someday will be able to help you out also. But I'm not going to give you his phone number yet. Thanks, Grandma.
A comment from Joe from Kentucky. The Orego stem is the best I've ever used for baby chicks. It sure keeps them healthy.
That's nice. And we've been selling a lot of oregano stem.
Yeah. Question from Jerry. Can you use Quest horse wormer to worm young birds? Isn't that amoxicillin?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we have.
If she's going to look it up in the catalog, and when I stutter, it's because I don't remember or just plain don't know, and hesitate telling you that yes or no. So
you can.
You can use it with young and nest. So, see what I mean? I didn't know, and Gina did, so she's going to look it up.
Oh, to worm young birds, he said.
While you're looking it up, Gina, probiotics, they may be mixed with vitamins. So as I was talking about Ultra Pro a few minutes ago, if you want to mix a probiotic and a vitamin together, by all means, it's fine, no problem at all. But you should not mix probiotics with antibiotics. If you think about it, pro means good, anti means against, so bad. So you don't want to mix a good probiotic with an antibiotic. They're going to clash and cancel each other out. Does it say?
Doesn't say about young birds.
Tell you what, why don't we do this? Give us a call after the show. I'll do a little bit of research. We'll call me at home, 724-359-5355, and I'll look it up. My gut feeling is no, but I could be wrong. That's why, generally speaking, they tell you to worm or use canker medicine or coccidiosis before breeding season. And so during breeding season, that's when you have your eggs and your babies. So my gut feeling is no, but we'll find out. And if you want to get in touch with me, fine. Or Gina here will have the information if you call her. I'm going to talk a little bit. I know we have a question. Quarantine. We get a lot of questions about that. Hardly a day goes by where I don't suggest quarantine. If you bring new birds in, a good quarantine period, is 3 to 4 weeks. If you have sick birds, do your best to get those birds out of the loft or at least out of the section. Gina's having a hot flash, so she stepped away and she's going like this. But quarantining, if you get sick birds, get them out the heck out of there because the disease will spread. So a good quarantine period, a minimum for bringing new birds in is 30 days. If at all possible, put them in a different building so that the disease doesn't spread. Apple cider vinegar. Change the water as often as possible. I change my water every day, but if you have the time to change it twice a day, that's even better.
That's what our question's on, apple cider vinegar.
Okay. So what apple cider vinegar does is acidifies the water, creates an acid environment, and bacteria does not grow in an acidic environment. At least doesn't grow anywhere near as fast like paratyphoid is a bacterial infection. So if you have if you have acid in the water like apple cider vinegar, it'll help the chances of bacterial infection popping its head 2-3 times a week, not every day, but 2 or 3 times a week is fine. And then, let me see what else it says. Yeah. Oh, when we say apple cider vinegar, some people don't hear the word apple or cider. You can get white vinegar anywhere, but we're talking about the apple cider vinegar. The most popular, most well-known brand is Bragg's, B-R-A-G-G-S. We sell it, but you can probably go into a health food store and find it. It's the same product. And if you look at a bottle of apple cider vinegar that has been standing on the shelf for a couple of days, you'll see there's this stuff settled on the bottom. What that's called is the mother. And apple cider vinegar, the good kind, the kind you want to use, has the mother. You shake it up before you use it and then put it into the drinking water. Teaspoon to a gallon is fine. Did I answer the question about apple cider vinegar?
No, Damien asked, does apple cider vinegar prevent canker?
No, has nothing to do with it. Canker is a protozoa, or like I said before, bug. And you need a medicine that's specifically made for canker. So if you're going to treat it, apple cider vinegar will not treat it.
Okay. Not a question, but a comment from Gramos.
Gramos, once a day. I listen to the radio every night to listen to a sports program, and whenever there's a Pirate baseball game, there's an after the show or after the game show where they take calls. It just bugs me, and as soon as he says, all right, we're going to take his first call, I turn the radio down because it's Chuck from Uniontown. He must call an hour before the show starts, and he's always the first caller, and he droned on and on. So, Gramos, one call. Go ahead.
Grandma said, I use moxidectin on my 3-week-old babies and I haven't lost any. I personally think it is very safe.
Who asked you, Grommas? Thank you, Grommas. I'm just kidding. But if you have a question, I will research it. But as I say, if Grommas uses it on his young birds, he has very small birds, then I feel comfortable that it's fine. If that's what he says. But, all right, another question?
No.
But I'll look into it, and if I can prove Grommas wrong, I'm going to do that. A lot of people use bleach in their water. It's a good idea. Once again, it prevents growth of bacteria in the water. A lot of people don't use enough. A guy called me using 2 or 3 drops of bleach. Waste of time. The minimum of a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons is not too much to a gallon of water. And be careful when you go to the grocery store to buy your bleach. You want just plain chlorine bleach. A lot of them are new and improved with whiteners and all that kind of stuff. But those are additives. You don't know what those additives are going to do to your pigeons because they're additive to clean clothes. So what you need is chlorine bleach, regular chlorine, nothing else. Here, have a cough.
You need a drink?
Just grab one.
The metal fountains and containers that we have. Metal fountains may be affected by even weak acids such as apple cider vinegar. They may also be a problem when using antibiotics. Galvanized metal is best, but over time it may become a problem.
That's timely because I think Gina and I were talking about it either yesterday or the day before. A customer did call and they used the metal fountains. Those same metal fountains have been on the market for at least 75 years, and people have used them for years and years. But if you're in today's world, everybody uses more additives like the apple cider vinegar, the bleach, antibiotics, and they do corrode galvanized metal. So there's a limited lifespan on those. A good metal fountain is going to last you 3 or 4 years or more, depending on how much apple cider vinegar you use or how much antibiotic you use. So it's not unusual for galvanized metal drinkers to eat away at the galvanization, and they will rust and they'll eventually leak. But we sell them and people love them.
Question.
Go ahead.
Ricky asked, can you mix probiotics with vitamins and electrolytes?
The question is, and the answer is?
Yes, you can.
Absolutely, we just covered that. But electrolytes. Gentleman called me yesterday about birds. He has racing pigeons. He lives in the United States, but his racing pigeons are in India. And he wanted to know what he might be able to do to decrease the possibilities of dehydration, because in India you have a lot of just terrible heat, and the pigeons become dehydrated in these races. And I suggested, and what brought it to mind is electrolytes are a good way to help prevent dehydration. Another question? No. All right. Normally, the reason I just keep asking Gina is when Veronica's here, she's another person, so we're out 3 people today. We have a screen on the wall in front of us and we can see the questions, but because we're short-handed, Gina has to look at that and I have to ask her if there's a question. I'm reading, if you're just tuning in, I'm reading from one of the tips that I'm going to be using in a book, and I'm just kind of going back and forth. Talk a little bit about canker. Canker can be in any opening. It can be in their ears, it can be in their rectum, it can be in their throat, or it can be internal canker. So you can have canker and not necessarily see it. It usually affects young birds, although I have seen breeders get it, but generally speaking, because the young birds don't have a strong immune system, they're going to get it, and it's in their throat deep down. If you try to remove it, it's going to bleed. There's also another disease which we've talked about in the past that's in the mouth generally of the roof of their mouth, and it looks like canker, but that's sinusitis, a respiratory infection. So if it's up on the roof of the mouth and you can remove it and it comes out real easy, tomorrow it'll be back, that's sinusitis. If it's deep in the throat and you try to remove it and it bleeds, that's canker. Canker looks like cottage cheese. So one of the important things about canker is you can't use the same medication all the time. If you use it month after month or year after year, the pigeons are going to develop a resistance to it, and you'll see it'll be less and less effective, and the way you'll see that is you'll get more and more canker. So give some thought to rotating the drugs that you use. There are a number of different drugs, and rotate them back and forth, or every 3 or 4 times go with something else. You're usually going to see canker during breeding season because, as I said before, it usually affects the babies in the nest.
Do you want to show the box?
Okay. We're going to talk about some products. So I don't knock over my Pepsi. Hold on just a second. I might be off the screen. I am going to be off the screen. Can you see that on the TV okay?
You have it the right way. It's upside down.
No, it isn't.
Oh, no. No, it's not.
All right. We sell a number of nest boxes. John Raber makes them for us. John's an Amish man who's worked for us for a number of years now. This is the large nest box. So you can buy just the nest box. If I remember right, this is 16 inches high, 26 inches from left to right across the front, 16 inches deep. So you can buy just this the way it is. But it's a multi-purpose nest box. So one of the things you can do is to put a nest front on it. You'll see this little piece of wood comes down, but it stops at before it hits the bottom. The reason for that is if you're using a scraper that pulls towards you, you would put your scraper here and pull the droppings out, so this leaves some room. Because if this went all the way down, droppings would accumulate there. So that's the reason. But the other reason, it's a stopper. It stops the nest front from going in. So all you have to do is not put the nest front in backwards. It works a lot better when you put it in the right way, doesn't it, Gina?
It sure does.
All right. Is the whole thing on the screen? Okay. These buttons hold it in. This is a heavy-duty nest front with the large dowels. If you want to use it as just an open nest box, the birds land here, walk in, you put your nest bowls in there. If you don't want them in or breeding season is over, after you've cleaned the nest box, you close it and you're done. Now, there's something else that can be done with this, and this is true of both sizes of our nest boxes. I like this idea. This is just a wood tray. Heck, you can make your own, but for you folks that aren't inclined or good carpenters, all you do is there it goes in like that. What it is you put your nest bowl back in there, and as you know, baby pigeons as they get older are very, very messy. So the nest bowl's here, all of the droppings stay right there. You want to clean it, you pull it out, you scrape your tray, and then you put the tray back in, so it makes it a lot easier. So that's another one. That's a tray, it makes it easy to clean. By the way, I love these, I use them. Then a third application, we all have heard about the divided nest front. So there you go. This is divided. They can have eggs on this side, young on this side. If you want to clean it, it comes right out. They can be cleaned, and it is divided. The reason for this is it gives the bird, the adult birds especially, a place to perch if they want to. And the board here is a 4-inch high board, prevents the young ones from getting out. Because as you know, I've had pigeons, you've had pigeons for a long time. The young sometimes come out of the nest, and it happens. and when this board, if this board weren't here, they'd walk out, they'd fly on the floor, and in many cases, an adult male bird is going to pick them so bad it'll scalp them. Sometimes it kills them. So this keeps the bird in. I just love that idea. And I don't use nest fronts. Now, I sell nest fronts, and we sell hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. But as a fancier, and I have approximately 200 pigeons, I don't use a nest front. I use just that tray I showed you because it makes it so much easier for me to clean. There's no reason for a nest front because my birds, generally speaking, in my breeder pen are already mated, so I don't have to lock them in. This board keeps the babies inside, so it's something I really like. All right. Did I miss anything on that one? No. That's the nest box. That's the large nest box. There's also one that the standard size, which fits the 12 by 24. Now I'm going to talk about white bird release. More and more people are getting into the white dove release business. Of course, I've mentioned it before. White dove just means a solid white pigeon. They call them doves, but in reality, they're not. The way to load this is for a wedding, and a white one. The black one is for a funeral, so we have them in two colors. I hope it isn't stuck from the paint job. There you go. This is how you put the bird in. Comes with directions, and it holds 4 birds, 1, 2, 3, and 1 here. It has to do with the Holy Trinity, or you just want to release a few birds. So what you do is you put 3 birds down here facing in. So you'll be looking at the bird. This is the back of the bird. And you put them in there, and you close it, and then you put 1 here, and you close it. Then at the proper time, you want to release the birds. Now they're facing this way. It's mesh, which allows plenty of air to flow. These little buttons, you pull it up, those 3 birds go. Then when those 3 birds go up in the air, generally speaking, 3 birds, they'll circle a couple of times until those 3 become a group. Then when they start to circle and you're watching them, then this would represent, it's the paint job. Drops right down, and 1 single bird goes out. In funerals, it represents the deceased. In weddings, it's the bride and groom. It goes up. Then you want to close it. You just put this back. Want to close it. Put this back. Done. So it's a really handy item, and people seem to really enjoy it. White and black. This is one that we personally use it at funerals. I wasn't supposed to talk about this one?
Go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, this is a 15 bird basket, all in black. The trim can be painted, but we leave it natural. This is to put the birds in. This is at funerals. This is to release the birds. It comes with a wire floor, which is removable, helps keep the inside, and what we do is inside clean. We put cedar shavings down here. It's a nice odor, and it sucks up the dropping. So you let your birds go. Let's say you're going to go to a funeral or a wedding, or you're going a long ways. What we've done here is designed this, the back of it, so that you can drop this down. The birds can stick their heads through here, and you can buy cups that hook onto here. We have them, they hook here. They can stick their head through to drink water, or they can stick their head through to eat feed, especially if for some reason, well, let's say you're going overnight to a family's celebration party or funeral or wedding, and you're going to carry these, but you've got to eat and drink, so that's what that is for.
And to take the tray out.
Pardon?
And to take the tray out.
Yeah, and to take the tray out. Also, this comes in black or in white. This is the 15 bird size. It comes in a 20 bird size also. It says 15, but you could put 18. It says 20, but you could put 22. Then the last thing I wanted to talk about, Gina, can you talk about this one? You're more familiar with it than me.
No, I don't think so.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You want me to talk about it?
No.
Okay, this is the remote release basket, and what it does is you can put it, they can't see me. You can put it at a distance, and there's a remote control with it that you can use to let the door drop down for the pigeons to come out. And I can't get this loose, of course.
We're learning. It's been painted so that we're stuck with the paint.
Should have had this ready for me.
Well, professional as we are.
So it's like a car battery remote. You have the pigeons in there, and then you have this all set up.
I never did pop.
Somehow.
Here
I
we
can't
go.
figure it out.
All
But
right.
you put the pigeons in the top, and then this will be set, and then once you're ready to release them, you hit the remote, and that'll open, and they'll fly out.
Comes in white, comes in black. But the ideal
Two
thing with this
sizes.
is it comes in 2 sizes. Is that if you're doing a funeral or a wedding, you don't have to walk out and let it down. You push a button, the door drops down, the birds are released. The folks kind of think it's magic because they don't see you doing it, but at the proper time you hit the button and away they go.
And
It
this-
really does work well.
Yeah. And it also comes in 2 sizes, 10 bird and 20 bird like the other one, and black and white once again.
Okay.
And those are usually when we get those remote release baskets, that we don't keep them in stock long. So if you do call or email and you want one, we don't have one, I can always put a rush on it for you. Just call and ask for me, and within probably 2 weeks you could have one.
We have an assortment of items for people in the white dove release business. We have heart-shaped baskets that come in white and black, and there's 2 sizes. We have everything we sell is in 2 sizes. We also have one for weddings where it has a mail slot, a brass mail slot. It's sort of like a cathedral, and that's where you would put the gift cards that you're bringing to a wedding, and above it is a place where you could put 1 or 2 doves, and it's doves, of course, the love and peace and all that kind of thing. So if you're interested in something or have an idea, need it built, we make custom products in just about anything. We have a full-time workshop, but in the white release we have 2 different people work those products for us. Okay?
I need that.
Yes, you need that. Okay. Now, once again, if you have a question, you can send them in to us. We'll answer them on the air. Wanted to talk a little about dropping. And this is a book. It's called My Health Book. All of the employees here at the company have it because almost all diseases seem to show up in the droppings. And the color and the consistency of the droppings tell us a lot. That's why I think at the beginning of the show I talked about that. If you have clear droppings, almost all water, in fact sometimes the floor just looks like it's flooded, it's really wet, and you scrape it and all you get is a lot of water. And most of the time that's caused by a virus. As you know, viruses are not treatable, but there are products that you can use when you're having an outbreak of PMV. One of them is something called Viromune, another one is Adenozap. They are not they're not medications to treat, they are to help you through it. Green droppings. Sometimes green droppings mean absolutely nothing. They're just that the birds are stressed. You'll see this when you take your birds to a show, or you'll see them when you bring them back from the show, and within 2 or 3 days the droppings clear up. That's strictly caused by stress. Paratyphoid or salmonella, that causes green droppings also. But the green droppings for salmonella paratyphoid are usually a darker shade of green. There are droppings that are lime green. Lime green dropping, that's bright green. That usually means coccidiosis. Remember at the beginning of the show I said if you're going to call me or ask me a question, be prepared to answer the question, because a lot of times I ask them and they never notice or their floor is covered with gravel or dirt or sand or shavings and they don't know, and I tell them segregate the bird, put something solid like metal under the wood, and when they defecate you'll know what color the droppings are, and that tells me a lot. Gina, you continue. I started right, you start there.
We do get a lot of health question phone calls, and we do ask a lot of questions. That's just to try to help you. And if somebody else is calling for you for whatever reason, try to tell them what all the symptoms are. We're going to ask, did you look in their throat? Did you look at the droppings? What color are the droppings? All that. Because a lot of times somebody calls for you and they don't have a clue what they're talking about. So maybe tell them or write down for them what actually is going on with your pigeons.
We'll be there when somebody else
to answer the question. Yeah. Okay, where were you?
Slimy droppings.
Slimy droppings sometimes mean E. coli, roundworms, or giardia.
Yep. Giardia is not very common. Giardia is when something dead is decomposing. It happened to me with a customer. I talked to him one time. A dead rat was in a gutter, and when when the birds were released, they'd land on the roof, and they love to go down and peck at the gutters because number one, it might hold water, but number two, a roof that is a shingled roof, the granules wash off into the gutter. It looks like sand, and the pigeons love to peck at it. But if there's a dead bird or a dead rat or a dead mouse or something in the gutter, then they're going to get giardia from drinking or eating that water. What were the other two?
E. coli and roundworms.
Yeah. E. coli is a secondary infection. It's a bacterial infection. Usually you don't get E. coli unless you have a disease that's weakened their immune system. And the other one was?
Roundworms.
Roundworm. Pretty common. They're going to pick up the roundworms in the gutter because a lot of times leaves get into the gutters, decompose. It's amazing where worms will show up, but they like moist areas and gutters of that. Or if your birds are exposed to the outside, allowed to go to the ground, they can pick up worms there, and you get slimy droppings.
Got two questions.
Yep.
Damien asks, can birds recover from paramyxo and be all right to race and breed again?
Yes, absolutely. If you don't vaccinate, it'll just keep coming back on you. So if you get paratyphoid, if you know you have paratyphoid, and we offer a service, if you really don't know, you're going to spend a little money, be less than, I would say somewhere around $200. If you want to send a bird to us, you call Foys, and we'll have a veterinarian do a complete necropsy, and they'll know for sure what's wrong with your birds. It's much better than getting their droppings analyzed, but we have veterinarians that work with us on a regular basis that can either do a look at the droppings under a microscope or can do a complete necropsy. Did I get off on a tangent there and didn't answer the question?
You answered it.
Okay.
You went off a little bit.
All right.
Next question from Jeff. Can feed cause droppings to change colors?
Feed? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you feed pellets, the droppings are going to get soft and mushy. If you feed a grit that has charcoal in it, a lot of charcoal, not even a lot, charcoal will turn the droppings black. And pigeons love charcoal. So if you put a dish of charcoal out, and I do it occasionally, the charcoal itself, they'll eat it, just keep eating it until everything and all their droppings are completely black. They just can't stay away from it. Would you mention John coming in the future? Because we're going to be talking about that. Why don't you do that?
Yeah, after I finish. So the rest of his comment was, I've always heard green is bad, but I have green droppings and birds, so they don't seem to be sick.
We had talked about that just a little bit ago. Green droppings could be nothing but stress, and stress is breeding season when the male's chasing the female around. Stress is their whole process of mating, building a nest, going to lay eggs. That's all stressful. So occasional green droppings aren't necessarily a sign that they're sick, some sort of stress. Like I said, take them to a show, take them to a race when they come home, or if you've got a pair of pigeons on eggs, the hen sets on those eggs from about 4 o'clock in the afternoon until the next morning, somewhere around 10 or 11. And she's been on that nest for over 12 hours. So if she is on that nest, when she comes off and goes to the floor, what you're going to see, you can't believe one bird can poop that much, because she's held it in for so long, and she comes out and some of it's going to be green and smelly, but that's because she's held it for so long. Wanted to talk about a fellow called me, and he's had a problem with mice for a long time, and he wanted to know what to do. And of course, the simple answer is get rid of the mice. He was concerned because mice droppings in urine could create paratyphoid. So I told him, number one, if you have to hire an exterminator, at our past location, we were near a creek, and we had a lot of mice, and we had feed, so it was natural for the mice to try to get in. So we brought in an exterminator, and he put traps all around our building, and it solved our problem. No more mice. So if you have to hire somebody, if you can't do it yourself, first you got to get rid of the mice. Another thing you've got to do is to have your feed covered. All of my feed containers have either a screw-on lid or a clip-on lid. Nothing can get into that feed. Another one is when you feed your birds, and we've talked about this an awful lot, don't leave feed overnight. What you want to do is feed your birds, if you're going to do it twice a day. In the morning, you feed enough for them to eat in like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. When you see a bird going to water, that's a good sign. It's time to take the feed away. Don't leave it in there all day. If you're going to feed them early in the evening, same thing. Don't leave that feed in overnight. When the mice come in, they're going to eat that feed. Urine droppings, paratyphoid is coming their way. So that's one of the things you want to do. Block all access. Use a wire that is small enough so that mice can't get in. You've got to prevent them as much as you possibly can from getting into your loft. Some people never have a problem. Other people, it's an ongoing problem.
And we do sell the containers that have the screw-on lid. We have two different sizes.
They're not a good seller, and I'm surprised, because we have two sizes. One will hold about 35 pounds, one will hold about 60 pounds. It's what I use in two of my lofts, and they have a spin lid on them. So I dump my feed in, and then when I'm done, I put the lid back on. It keeps it secure and keeps the feed clean.
Okay. One question before I finish. Jeff asked, what's the ideal color of a dropping?
Brown to dark brown with some white or liquid. The white is urine, by the way. The brown is feces. The white is urine. So if you don't have white in it, something's wrong. But that's what it is. Light brown to darker brown. Well, we're pretty much done, aren't we?
Yep.
Well, let's do some reminding. Tomorrow, we're doing this live. Tomorrow we're having a spring open house. You're welcome to come. If you need directions, call Foys. And we'd love to have you. A lot of surprises, but you'll get a tour of the whole building. You're welcome to wander around. We're not bringing you in to necessarily try to sell you anything. I know we're going to have free donuts and coffee, though, right?
We're going to have the big cinnamon rolls.
And cinnamon rolls. We just want, it's nice for us to meet, and gives us the opportunity when we talk on the phone. You know what we are, who we are, and we know who you are. So we welcome you tomorrow from 9 to 3. Direction 724-843-6889. I hope if you enjoy this show, you'll consider writing a small check out to the NPA Legacy Fund Trust. It's to support the future of our hobby, and we need that support. And with the money that you're contributing, you make the check out to NPA LFT, send it to Foys. At $100 level, you will be listed twice a year forever in the National Pigeon Association Quarterly as a top-notch breeder, somebody who really cared about the hobby.
But they don't have to do the $100 all at once,
No,
right?
no, I just had a guy send me 25, and he's going to keep sending me 25. If he never sends me, 25 is great. $10 is great. It's just that if you want to be listed forever as a pigeon fancier, you need to be at the $100 level.
But you can work your way up to it.
Yep.
Send however much you can when you can.
You want to just go on for another hour?
No.
No? Okay.
But I did want to mention one more thing. One of our future shows, we're going to have a guest. His name is John Scheichel. He works for Moyer Feed. Some of you probably know him. He'll be coming to discuss all the different feeds that they sell and different the protein and fat content of each feed.
And then we had that question is about feed and what turns their droppings dark or changes the color of their droppings. Another example would be black oil sunflower seed. But and Gina and I were talking about bringing John in from Moyer Feed, and they make the European spring that we sell. They make a lot of good feed. But John is going to come in and talk about each individual grain, because if you look at a mixture of grain, there's all kinds of grains in there. Why is corn in there? Why are peas in there? And there are 3 kinds of peas. Safflower. There's so many different grains. Millet. And he'll be able to explain to us why that particular grain is in the feed. So as soon as we can firm up a date with John, we'll let you know beforehand. And if you have questions about feed, he'll be the man.
And as always, if you have a topic that you would like us to discuss, just send us an email or message on Facebook, our website, or call us, and we can add that to our next show agenda.
And if you want to watch our previous shows,
they are on our Facebook page and our website.
Okay. And also, one of the nice things about doing this show in our office is we don't care if we don't have any commercials that have to break in. So if we go a little bit over, big deal. Nobody wants to say anything. But if you have a question, you can email it anytime to Foys, and during the show we'll answer your question if you want to handle it that way. We'd love it. It's really nice to have the questions. It gives us the opportunity to discuss a lot of things, because one question sometimes leads to another question, to another answer. And you'll notice for the last 10 shows I have a tangent going off course and talking about other things because of questions you've asked. All right. Thanks an awful lot. We done?
Yep. Our next show will be May 4th.
Thanks an awful lot for listening. I'm going to shut the camera off now.